Good evening. Welcome to the Glazov gang. Tonight, Obama's war crimes charges. To discuss this issue with us this evening, the one, the only, the man, the myth, the legend, Raymond Ibrahim, the author of Crucified Again, Exposing Islam's New War on Christians. Raymond, it is an honor to have you back on the Glazov gang.
It's always a pleasure, Jamie. Thank you for that magnanimous introduction.
Thank you, Raymond. And we've got some serious issues to discuss this evening on the war crimes charges Obama is now facing. But before we get into the serious and depressing issues of our time, I can't help from asking you a question, Raymond. The last time I seen you at the Lux event a couple weeks ago, you had a great suit on, but you had no socks on. What's going on there exactly?
Well, Jamie, I hope you're the only one who noticed that. I was in a hurry, and I was driving, and, you know, I packed so many things. And then when I actually didn't pack a dress shirt, and so before I got there, I had to stop at a store and get a shirt, and I was happy. And then I realized when I got to the hotel, I didn't have any socks either. But thankfully, there was a podium in front of me, and, you know, the rest is history. Of course, you saw reality, but I was kind of hiding my ankles from the rest.
Okay, so it's not a new fashion trend that you're trying to start.
No, but I mean, if people like it and it does become popular,
it could catch on.
Yeah.
Well, Raymond, it shows also the fact that you are fighting a very important battle, and perhaps all of our minds are sometimes not on our clothing and our socks in terms of the dire, crazy, and depressing situation we face in the world today, and that's what I'm going to bring up now. Raymond, you had an article the other day at Front Page and at other places. You're an expert on this. Obama's war crimes charges. Egyptian lawyers have filed a formal complaint at the International Criminal Court accusing U.S. President Obama of crimes against humanity. What's going on?
What's going on is a group of lawyers in Egypt, formal lawyers, including some who are professors of law at colleges, filed a complaint, formal complaint at the International Criminal Court, charging Obama and the Muslim Brotherhood of crimes against humanity. And they do this first by quoting the actual definition by the International Criminal Court of crimes against humanity. And there are things like mass murder, rape, attacks on certain segments of groups, anything, just crimes against humanity, numbers of things. And then they give you a couple of good, solid examples that everyone knows, at least in Egypt, because we have all the footage and the taping, of how the Muslim Brotherhood, because of its inciting, created violence against Egyptians in two separate incidences. One is around the presidential palace in December, and the other is in the so-called sit-in camps, which is where they were actually killing and slaughtering people who didn't want to live according to Sharia law and raping women, etc. And then they conclude by saying, because Obama has unequivocally been supportive of the Muslim Brotherhood, and he's been supportive, they cite in two ways, monetarily, by giving them so much money in aid, which in fact they use, or so the the complaint claims, they used to actually pay people, and I believe this, I've seen a lot of reports, to pay people to actually do the things they did, including attack up to 85 churches in retaliation in order to create chaos in Egypt after the ousting of Morsi. So they're saying because he supported them monetarily, and of course politically, we all know he was very supportive of the Muslim Brotherhood. We've seen John McCain, Lindsey Graham go to Egypt and fight on behalf of the ousted Morsi and the Muslim Brotherhood and visit them in their cells, including Brotherhood leaders who weren't even in the government, which just shows you the Brotherhood tie. And of course, Ann Patterson, Hillary Clinton, the list goes on and on. We know that the Obama administration, we personally, has been supportive. And of course, Egypt is aware of this. That's why they had placards in the June 30th revolution saying, Obama, stop supporting terrorism. So therein is the point. The complaint says he is an accessory to the Muslim Brotherhood who has committed crimes against humanity, and therefore he too is guilty of them.
Raymond, thank you. You know, what I want to get to a little bit later in our interview, if we have some time, it's just incredible, the supporters of Obama and speaking to leftists. It's incredible that while this is happening, you can give them the evidence, you can tell them what's happening, and they just are so apathetic and indifferent, the way leftists have always been to the crimes of our adversary tyrants and terrorists. So I want to paint this horrible picture for a minute of the reality for our viewers, so they understand and know what's going on there. Look, first of all, we know the Brotherhood's evil. We know all about Sharia and all the evil that they perpetrate. Let's get a little bit into your specialty, something that really breaks my heart that I've been following, and that is that the Brotherhood, these are rapists. They have rape gangs. Tell us a bit about what they're doing to Christian girls as well as Christian boys. And as Raymond tells us this, keep in mind that these are the people and monsters that Obama is funding and putting money into their pockets.
Sure, Jamie. Great angle. Staying within the context of Egypt and what happened to the Muslim Brotherhood, after the ousting of Morsi and again in so-called retaliation against the scapegoats of the nation, that is the infidel Christian Copts, we've seen, number one, up to 85 in some ancient churches from the 5th century have been destroyed, burned, looted, riddled with bullets and anti-Christian graffiti.
Let me interrupt you for 1 second, Raymond. You know, you're the only person I've heard say this. Now, don't get me wrong. Yes, I watch Fox News. They say it from time to time. Where is the front page of the New York Times, front page of the Washington Post, MSNBC, CNN? You never see Anderson Cooper or anyone talking about this. Imagine if Christians and Catholic priests destroyed and torched 85 mosques. This would be all over the news.
Mosque.
Yeah, just deal with that for a second, and I'm sorry that I've derailed here. But it's incredible that 85 churches torched, burned down, plundered, and not a word from our mainstream media.
Absolutely correct, Jamie. And this goes to your earlier point, which is, things have gotten so apathetic and indifferent, and a lot of it has to do directly with the mainstream media. I mean, like you said, 85 churches. I would counter one mosque, if it was attacked and, let's say, destroyed by Israeli forces, would be plastered all over the front pages of all the media, as you know. And in fact, the BBC, they wrote an article which was all dedicated to trying to minimize the specter of Christian persecution in the Islamic world, and they did it by arguing that there's this statistic, and it traced it to the original think tank, that 100,000 Christians are martyred every year, and the whole article was dedicated to trying to prove that no, it's not 100,000, it's a lot less. Now stop for a moment and wonder, can you imagine any BBC, New York Times, or any of these places writing an article trying to minimize, let's say, the deaths of Palestinians and saying, you know what, not as many Palestinians die or in conflict.
Well, Raymond, one of the people actually doing this, Mohammed Ali Biari, who's on the Homeland Security Advisory Council, appointed by the Obama administration. Tell us a little bit about what he's been doing in his tweets, etc., minimizing and throwing dust into the eyes of the persecution of Copts.
Well, all these guys, the Muslim Brotherhood operatives in America, were even recently exposed in Egypt. Egypt, it's amazing and it's sad that Egypt, the country where the Muslim Brotherhood was born, and Egypt, the country that is Islamic, is now trying to ban the Muslim Brotherhood, who are in the United States running about unfettered, as you pointed out, Libri and all these other, Dalia Mugahid and all these people are running around in the government, in the White House, doing their operative work on behalf in the Hill. They wrote an article. Go ahead.
Now, Raymond, I apologize that I derailed here for a minute. Just in a minute or two, please, give our viewers this picture, this grim picture of what's happening to those poor Christian girls and boys suffering under the sex jihad and the sex persecution, etc. there.
In Egypt and in Syria and elsewhere, a fatwa came out, which is based on Islamic jurisprudence, etc., saying if you're a jihadist, because jihadis always get anything they want because they're sacrificing their life for the cause of Allah, etc., if you're a jihadi, you have the right to rape any woman you want, especially an infidel, a kafir, a Christian, which is what it ends up being in these nations. And that's what's been happening. And moreover, in Egypt, they've also created gangs that actually have gone about abducting children, asking for ransom. They take this ransom, if they get it, and they treat it as jizya, tribute, money owed to them because non-Muslims must pay tribute. And then sometimes they kill the child anyway, rape it or whatever. In Syria, And this is even more eye-opening in a way than Egypt and the Muslim Brotherhood and Obama. Here we know that the Obama administration's arming is militarily helping the opposition. And what they're doing is a travesty, is an atrocity by any measure. Just recently, a month ago, in an ancient Christian city called Sadat, which is actually in the Old Testament. That's how ancient it is, where people were still speaking the language of Christ. Islamic rebels went there, they slaughtered about 50 people, they threw them in wells, they raped them, they killed them. 2 or 3 weeks before that, in another ancient Christian community, Ma'lula, they did the same thing. They forced people to convert to Islam, and if they didn't, they'd slit their throat. And this is happening, and that's also Syria's where they issued a fatwa saying it's okay to rape non-Sunni women, including Christians.
Okay, now Raymond, in terms of all of this and who Obama is supporting, we have to keep in mind here, and this is why those charges have been brought up by the Egyptians, because he's an accessory, he's complicit, he's enabling this. Before I ask one question, just a sec, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me bring up one more thing. So you've got the Obama administration supporting these rape gangs and these Sharia supporters, these jihadists. Now, there's evidence coming out, and this is why they don't want the trial with Morsi. There is some evidence to suggest that Morsi was on the phone and speaking to al-Qaeda and al-Zawahiri.
Oh, the evidence in Egypt that I'm reading about, and this is coming out of courts during the preliminary trials, all suggests, and not suggest, I suggest is a soft word, all asserts that Morsi specifically and the Muslim Brotherhood in general have had ties all along with al-Qaeda, especially in the Sinai where they're located, and have made deals, and Morsi brought them over, and phone calls between Morsi and Ayman Zawahiri, who, as you know, is not just the leader of Al-Qaeda, but an Egyptian.
But Zawahiri just came out with a video actually supporting Al-Qaeda.
He came out with a video, Zawahiri came out with a video, and in it, I don't know if he did this intentionally, he's talking in Arabic, and he tells us, number one, that Osama bin Laden was a member of the Muslim Brotherhood,
right, and
that the Muslim Brotherhood all along was supporting the jihad in Afghanistan, which means that, I mean, they're doing it everywhere.
Right. And so, in one way or another, there's a support of bin Laden and al-Qaeda in that statement. Right. And so wait a minute. So we've got these statements on behalf of jihad in Afghanistan, on behalf of al-Qaeda. We've got Morsi on the phone with al-Zawahiri, and alleged at this point, but this is what might be in the trial and the evidence coming out. And Obama, so let's get this right. Morsi supporting al-Qaeda and talking to al-Qaeda, Obama supporting Morsi. How do we tie this up? What does this mean?
Exactly. In other words, a known, by U.S. definition, a known terrorist organization, al-Qaeda, which attacked us in 9/11, which killed up to 3,000 Americans and any other number of atrocities, through the Muslim Brotherhood as middlemen. So you have Obama and the White House dealing with the Muslim Brotherhood very cozily, and now we know, even though they claimed otherwise, that the Muslim Brotherhood is dealing directly with al-Qaeda. And so again, we go back to this idea of accessory. And again, you see that the White House, the Obama administration, is an accessory, instrumentally using the medium of the Muslim Brotherhood, dealing with al-Qaeda.
Raymond, let me ask you this. We only have a few minutes left, unfortunately. In looking at all of this and why the Egyptians have brought these charges at the International Criminal Court against Obama, let me ask you this. When we know about the money and the funds and the support that Obama was giving the Muslim Brotherhood, and then what the Muslim Brotherhood has been doing and is doing, let me ask you this. If it wasn't for the Obama administration and the funding and support it gave to the Muslim Brotherhood, if it wasn't for that, would less churches and less Christian girls and less Copts have been killed and raped?
Jamie, if it wasn't for Obama's support, Morsi would have never even won the elections in the first place. We know for a fact that when Morsi was doing the elections, right at the beginning, there were so many organizations and tallying groups that said he never won. And that's why, maybe you'll recall, there was a holdup. And at the time, the general who was ruling said, we're not going to declare a winner because there have been accusations of fraud and so forth. And there was fraud.
Yes.
So at the time, so many people. And then what happened? Hillary Clinton came out and started yelling and accusing and saying, you have to declare someone now. And then they declared Morsi. But above and beyond that issue, of course, the fact is in Egypt, you have to know, the Muslim Brotherhood, especially now, is immensely not popular. Now, this isn't a product so much, I'm not saying that Egyptians are against the Islamist agenda, but the Muslim Brotherhood in particular now is painted in a very ugly picture for what it's done, because it's attacked Egyptians, it's killed Egyptians, Muslims and Christians, and so now it's really in the negative, but it did it a lot by paying money and hiring thugs. It hires thugs. The reports and the evidences are out there. The guys who burned 85 Christians, so many of them were paid.
85 churches, Christian churches.
85 churches.
But so Raymond, exactly. So the same way that the left during the Vietnam War, in terms of what happened to the boat people, in terms of the re-education camps, even how the fall of Saigon ultimately left to the fall of Laos and Cambodia and what the Khmer Rouge did, the left had blood on its hands in terms of facilitating that takeover. And we go a generation later, now we come to our era, the blood of Christians, the blood of Egyptians suffering under the Muslim Brotherhood, the left in power the left in power in the United States, its hands are drenched with blood in terms of those poor people.
Most absolutely, and I always say it gets to a point where it's becoming surreal. It's the point, as you earlier indicated, we can give evidence after evidence of atrocity after atrocity of the White House being complicit, and it's just become kind of like, so what? This is just reality.
Yeah. We just have 1 minute left. Raymond, in terms of the Egyptians bringing this complaint to the International Criminal Court, in terms of the trial coming up as well, I think some things might come to the surface, right? Some very troubling things might come to the surface.
Well, that's exactly it. The unspoken truth is that the trial of the Muslim Brotherhood and Morsi in particular is going to expose a lot of dirty secrets above and beyond anything that we think is, makes the White House and Obama look bad. And I think that's why right now there's a lot of internal stuff going on, internal concessions, I would suspect, from the United States. In other words, the only way that this stuff will really come out in the open is if Egypt and the U.S. are really reach the point of absolute separation. But there's still some sort of negotiations. And I think, John McCain went there begging and pleading to get Morsi out. Why? Because they know, and Egyptian Muslim Brotherhood people affiliated with Morsi and al-Shatar and all these people, their kids and their grandkids and their friends, are saying, Obama better do something, because if he doesn't, these people are going to spill the beans on their connection.
You know what's so horrifying here, Raymond? Imagine an American president throughout history that maybe was trying to stop the Nuremberg trials, or was against putting Pol Pot and the Khmer Rouge on trial, or if there had been trials against the Soviet genocide monsters. We have an American president and administration trying to stop the trial of mass murdering jihadists.
Right.
What
Absolutely.
a disgrace and how surreal. Thank you, Raymond, for fighting for the truth. Thank you for your brave and noble battle on behalf of freedom and against the monstrosities represented by jihad. Thank you, Raymond.
And thank you for having me, Jamie. It's always a pleasure.
We'll see you again soon. Thank you for joining the Glazov gang, and we'll be back very soon in our next episode with another very special guest. Good night.